Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. I have the honor of having Artemis. We were just talking about her name before the podcast. So Artemis here. Don't call her Artie unless you're really good friends with her. Here, I'm so happy to have you here because we just met like a week ago, 2 weeks ago from Mark. I did not know you were in Cirque du Soleil until he told me. But that's now probably what we're going to talk about now. But what I like to do with my guests is let them kind of tell their story and we'll kind of go from there and see where the conversation takes us.
Sure. Sounds great. Thank you for having me, Austin. I'm very excited to be here. And I wasn't in Cirque, but I was the strength and conditioning coach for KA.
Okay.
Their show KA, which is how, we all connected. It was a really great experience, which I can share that as part of my story. Well, my story, see how I don't want to drag it out really long, but I was born and raised in Newton, Massachusetts, and athletics and was a very important part of my life from a very young age. So when I was 3.5, I started to take classical ballet. And what drove me to do that was that my older sister was taking ballet lessons, and I wasn't old enough to take them, but because my sister was doing it, I wanted to do it because I wanted to do everything that my older sister did. So I persuaded my mom to persuade the dance instructor to get me to sign up for classes. And then from there, I took ballet from 3.5 until I was 27. I went to the Boston Ballet for many years and was went to their summer camps. I was good at it and I loved it. And it was something that there was a period of time that it was something that I thought I was going to do as my profession. But a lot of my experiences during that time shaped what I got into later on in life in terms of what I did for work. And that was that being in ballet, like my body never matched the classical ballet body image. And so I definitely sustained a lot of negativity about my body and created a very poor body image based upon it, and suffered from an eating disorder when I was in high school as a result of it. And that was something that disordered eating was something that really plagued my life until I was 29 or so, was when I really just kind of got fed up with food controlling my life and decided to start to tap into intuitive eating. And I was just so sick of thinking about everything that I ate and how it shaped my body every time I took a bite out of it. And so I started to let go of that when I was 29, which is great. But I think when you suffer from something like that, you're never quite over it. I still have, even though I am past that was another lifetime there, I still have my days, right? I'm 45. So even at age 45. And so from there, so I took ballet, and then I went on to study when I decided to give up ballet, because I was really sick and tired of focusing on what I could do. Focusing on what I looked like. I wanted to focus on what I could do. I started studying Kung Fu. And that was when I was 27. And then that led me, and I loved that because that transition was when I started studying Kung Fu, I never went back to dance ever again, ever. It was just it just was a switch that flipped. And I loved Kung Fu because I was just focusing on what I could do, on how strong I was, on how powerful my kick was, how fast my punch was. Can I do knuckle push-ups on a hardwood floor? Things like that. So with that was a really big transition for me in terms of confidence and body image and focusing on what I could do versus what I looked like. And during that time, I went through growing up in Newton, Massachusetts. I don't know if anyone's listening, if you know Newton, Massachusetts, but it's actually there. It's a pretty wealthy suburb of Boston. And my dad is a son of Greek immigrants. So when his parents, my grandparents, came over to the United States from Greece, and his dad died when he was very young, when he was 3 years old, and he's the youngest of 3 children. And so he and his brother and sister had to help because my grandmother didn't speak English very well, but they had to work hard to support my grandmother, my yaya, and so my dad is a self-made, now he's a retired attorney, but he's a self-made attorney. He went through this journey of overcoming being the son of immigrants and becoming a self-made attorney and putting himself through law school and all of that. And my mother is from Lynnfield, Massachusetts. And so they instilled a really strong work ethic in me. So while we grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, surrounded by people who seem to have, had money in their families for generations, we were there because my parents worked really hard to make sure that we were somewhere where we could have a great school system and be able to follow that path of higher education. Higher education is very strongly valued in my family. My mother has her MBA. And so that's the path that I followed. I went to college, I went to GW, but I really didn't even know what I wanted to do when I went there. I ended up majoring in psychology, which I loved and I use a lot now, which I'm sure you use a lot of that too, Austin, in your coaching. And but from there, when I first graduated from college, I didn't do anything with it. I went to go work in procurement I was living in Washington, D.C. So I went to go work for the Department of the Treasury, the United States Mint, and I worked in procurement for them. And I worked in procurement for 8 years, not loving it. And I knew there was something more that I should be doing with my life. And so with my athletic background, that's what led me to fitness. And my younger brother, he graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder with a degree in kinesiology. And he went on to be a personal trainer starting out. Now he's a doctor of physical therapy. But he said, hey, Artemis, I know that what you want to do is work as a personal trainer. You want to work in fitness. But at that time, I was just really struggling with will I be able to make a living as a personal trainer, right? Because if I don't work, I don't get paid, and I'm going to leave this really secure office job and go and work as a personal trainer. I don't know. I didn't see how. I was really scared to take that leap and make that transition. So what I did do, and this was back in 2003, is I went and I got my spin instructor certification, and I started teaching spin classes part-time in addition to my full-time office job. And then I started to love my part-time job so much more than my office job. And my office job became something that was just paying my bills, right? I started to just really dread going there and just get excited to leave to go and teach my classes or teach my classes in the morning. And then from there, I still, stuck it out for about 5 years working in the office world. I ended up switching from working in procurement, doing contracts administration and negotiation to consulting. So I started to do software implementations and business process analysis and consulting. And I thought that would solve all my problems. I was like, maybe it's just I don't like writing contracts and administering them and negotiating. Maybe I just need to, I really just want to be doing this. And then I did that for 5 years and was like, no, I hate this too. I actually just really love my part-time job. And that's really what I want to do. So I finally got, everything together and left the office in 2008 to work full-time in the fitness industry. And then after that, I never looked back. I started working in a commercial gym, and then I went on and I met my husband and we opened up a gym in Boston, Massachusetts. I moved back to Boston from the DC area. And that's when I met my husband, and that was in 2009. And then we opened up our gym in 2011, small studio training gym. We ran that for 5 years. we thought that was going to be our dream. And we specialized in kettlebell training. And with that, I still kept going with my athletic endeavors. There's this challenge called the Iron Maiden challenge in the hardstyle kettlebell community that I trained for 3 years for and completed. And what it is essentially is, regardless of weight or size, for women, you go in and you do a 53-pound strict military press, a 53-pound weighted pull up from a dead hang, and then you do a 53-pound pistol squat. And men use 106 pounds to do it. So I trained I'm like 5'1", like 115 pounds. My challenge was like, man, like no one my size has ever done it before. I wonder if someone my size can do it. And it took me 3.5 years, or 3 years, not 3.5, it was like 3 years. And I completed it. So, that was still keeping up with these competitive athletic endeavors were really important for me. Because just like, Kung Fu, I went on to get my black belt. And then after that, it was like Iron Maiden challenge. And then, so my husband and I, we opened our gym and we were really excited about it, but there were so many challenges with this facility. We got into a space that was way too big for us. The lease was like just way too high for us to get into starting out, but we were in a really hairy situation subleasing to run our business. And so we were having a conflict with the gym owner that we were subleasing from. So we had to move fast, and we didn't have a lot of choices in terms of spaces at the time. So we just settled for like what we could get. And that sort of kicked off the challenges of our business of owning a facility. We ended up in a contractual dispute with the first landlord, with that initial landlord, and we fought them because we had signed our house as a personal guarantee on the lease. So we fought them because we were right, and we believed we were right. And so we were fighting them for that, but also to save our house for two reasons. And so we fought them for about 18 months. And during that time, our lawyer was dealing with some other things for us and helping us. And he advised us to leave that facility to go to another facility while we were fighting this fight. So we moved into our second facility while we were doing this. And in the end, there were some moments where it looked like we were going to win, but this company was they're a very large realty company in the Boston area with a lot of money, a lot of property. And the second to last judge was going to looked like they were about to rule in our favor. And then the case got turned over to a different judge who had a relationship with this real estate company and ruled in favor of this real estate company. So to save our house, we had to file for bankruptcy. We had to file for personal and business bankruptcy. And that was really tough. That was like a really dark period. Sorry, I'm getting emotional about it.
No, you're good. You're good.
It was a really dark period because it was something that we didn't want to do that. There's a lot of stigma with bankruptcy, right? There's a lot of shame associated with it. So it was really hard to do that, but we did it, and we had to close the gym. And then my husband, what brought us out to Vegas and working for Cirque was that at that time, as we were getting ready to file for bankruptcy, we had to do something to pay the bills, right? So my husband is an athletic trainer, and he went on to apply for jobs to get back into his field of athletic training. Because when I met him, he was working as an athletic trainer at Boston University, a senior athletic trainer at Boston University. And he left Boston University and he left the field of athletic training to run the gym with me, right? To own and operate this gym together. So he was like, I'm just going to get back into this. Like, we need a break from everything. And, the crazy thing is that we had this gym for 5 years. And as soon as we moved into the new facility, we revamped our business plan and all of our offers and how we got away from one-on-one, and we started to do group classes and small group training instead. And things were going really, really well in this new facility. The facility was perfect in terms of size and expenses. And then it was it was right on the storefront, everyone could see it. And how our new business model was doing really, really well. But we were both just totally burnt out. We were just completely, even though that was going well, we were just like, we're so done with this business anyway. Like, we don't even have it in us to enjoy what is happening right now. Right. Cause we're still fighting this. We're still in litigation right now. Right. And, so he ended up applying for jobs in his field. He applied for a job at Cirque du Soleil to be the head therapist for their show Zumanity out in Las Vegas. And it was funny when he did that too. Like, I remember so clearly when he was applying for this job, I was where we lived in Roslindale, Massachusetts. And it was in a walk up. We were in a 2-family home that was converted into 4 condos. There were 2 on the bottom floor and 2 upstairs. And I remember standing in the kitchen and he was sitting in our living area and he was like, "What do you think about moving to Vegas?" I was like, "Sure." And I had never even visited Las Vegas, but I was just like, compared to what is going on in our lives right now, I'll do anything, man. So I was like, yeah, okay. He's like, okay, yeah, because there's this job with Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas. I'm going to apply for it. I was like, great. So he applied for it and he got the job. And so when we closed our gym, my husband moved out to, like, literally, it was like 5 days later, he was in the car driving cross country to go and start at Cirque. And then I was hanging back for a couple of months, just packing up the house, waiting for the movers. And we still had some clients that I ended up training out of a friend's facility for a couple of months before I left. And so he headed out in November 2016, and then I moved out in January 2017. And that was that was definitely challenging. Cirque put us up in the Candlewood Suites. So my husband he lived in the Candlewood Suites on the Strip for 2 months. And then when I get out there, I was in the Candlewood Suites for 2 weeks. And when we got out here, we had fresh bankruptcies on our records. And it was really hard we had to get out of the Candlewood Suites. I mean, Cirque couldn't pay for our housing forever. There was a time where it was going to end. And then we also didn't want that to be the rent that we were paying. We wanted to get an apartment. So it was tough to find a place that would rent to us, but thankfully we found a place, and we lived in that apartment for a year. And during that year, 2017, like, it wasn't over. When we filed for bankruptcy, it was not over. We still had to sell our house. And when we went to sell our house, our condo in Roslindale, we had bought it for $200,000, and then it had gone up in value in that we had a whole bidding war, which was amazing. And the highest bidder was about $400,000. So we're super excited about that. And, but then when we were going to go through the closing, our bankruptcy attorney had screwed up and had forgotten to file the paperwork to remove the lien from our house. Because we had gone through, like, there was a point in time where they had put a lien on our bank accounts and as well as our house. And when how we found out about the lien on our bank accounts, and I know I'm like just really I'm kind of like all over the place giving all these things, but I remember we were down at the beach for a weekend, and we went to go to the grocery store, and we swiped our card and it wouldn't. And I'm like, I know there's money in the bank account. And I went and I checked our bank balances, and they had drained our business accounts, and they had taken the maximum allowable out of our personal accounts. And we were like, oh my, I mean, I swear, I still to this day, like, remember that feeling. It was just like, just feeling so unsafe and so violated, right? Just so unsafe. Anyway, so we drove back and switched banks and all this stuff. And, but it took, it's taken years to, like, get over that whole experience with the gym. And so with that, when we were here selling our house, our bankruptcy attorney had screwed up and forgot to take the lien off our house. And so we could have brought legal action against him, but we were like, because there was him and there was like 2 other lawyers that we were working with, and they were like, you can bring legal action against him. Like, he really screwed up. And we're like, we're done with litigation. Like we've been doing that for like a year and a half. We're all set. We just want to get this fixed. So it took, that was like in May 2017. And then finally we got like the paperwork filed and everything. And we were just like, we hope we can keep this buyer. We'll hang out. If not, we'll find another buyer, hopefully. And then we didn't end up closing on the house until like August 2017. It was that long. So we had to like, at that point, the offer had expired, all those things, right? All of it. So we had to have, she was still like in it. She was like, I'm in it. So that was great. We still have the buyer, but we had to refile all like the paperwork and the closing and all that stuff. And I remember that was a very deep, dark time for me. Like 2017 was a year I felt hopeless. I felt depressed. I felt like I totally washed up. And then when that whole thing, and we like selling the house was like, we were like freedom. We're finally going to be done with all this stuff. And that was in May. And then when that didn't happen, I remember I just like fell into a hole. And I was just like, luckily I didn't have to work a lot. My job was to just get up every day, work out, lay out by the pool, read self-help books, watch movies at night. Like every single night, my husband would come home from work and I'd be like watching my movie of the night because that's what I was doing. Because like I honestly was incapable of doing anything else. And so when that whole thing happened with the lean, I was just like that. I just went to a whole other low level. And then finally, when it all worked out and we closed our house and everything, my husband, how Cirque is structured is that when you, like the shows, they have dark periods for vacations. So you know what your schedule is for the entire year. So there's a big 2-week dark period that we would have to take our vacations every single year over because you don't get any time outside of that scheduled dark period that they dictate. So my husband's dark period that year was in August, and it was like about 5 days. We closed on the house, on the sale of the house, about 5 days before the dark period. And our plan was like, we were going to go to Hawaii. We're going to go to the Big Island and we're just going to fucking like enjoy ourselves for the first time in like 5 years. And so when that happened, it was like, I'm like, we're buying the tickets. We're like booking the house. And my husband, like, I literally had to like take his hand and like put his finger on the keyboard and be like, buy now. Cause he was like, because for the first time in so long, we had money. And he was like, didn't want to let go of the money. I'm like, we got to go on vacation. We got to go. And honestly, we only spent like $5,000 on that entire vacation, which is like nothing. But at the time, it just was like letting go of anything was like, it was terrifying. So, we ended up going on vacation. It was great. And that was, since then, since we've been in Vegas and I forgot to mention, like when we moved out here, so my husband was working for Cirque, and even though I was not in the best place in 2017, I did have some revenue streams in terms of like when we had our gym, we started an online business back in 2013 with one-on-one clients, a subscription group, and like DIY programs. And so I still had like part-time online business. And then also, as soon as I came out, I did apply. There were 2 strength and conditioning positions open at Cirque at that time. And so I did apply for those positions, and I ended up first getting hired on as an on-call, and then I got the assignment of being the dedicated strength and conditioning coach for KA. So then that just was like the process of rebuilding from like 2017, 2018. 2018, I started to get my mojo back, and I was like working at Cirque. I was like increasing my online business. I had this women's strength workshop I used to teach called I'm Not Afraid to Lift. I got back into teaching that and scheduling that all over the US. I started to train people out of our garage gym. So I was like totally getting back into the groove and feeling good. And then in like 2019, I decided like, hey, I want to leave Cirque and I want to let go of my in-person clients, and I want to grow my online business to a full-time business. So I did that, and that happened very, very quickly. Like as soon as I made the decision to do that, I thought it was going to take all year, but it actually took like 5 weeks for me to hit my revenue goal so that I could leave Cirque and start to let go of my in-person business. And then at the end of 2019, so my husband eventually left Cirque in August 2019. And then at the end of 2019, I was like, okay, we both decided together that we wanted to pivot our business to business coaching and help other entrepreneurs start, grow, and scale their online businesses. So that's what we do now. We have, and we also work on because we went through a lot in terms of money mindset and healing our relationship with money. And we had to overcome the shame of bankruptcy. And really part of overcoming that shame of bankruptcy was about I'm sure anytime you're making a mindset shift or you're overcoming any sort of experience that you have a lot of guilt and shame about, the way you heal from it is you disassociate yourself from it. And the only way that you disassociate yourself from it is if you start to just talk about it the way you take your coffee, right? So I just started talking when I was ready to start talking about it freely, publicly, writing emails about it, posts about it and everything. Now I can just talk about it. It's a lesson learned. And we learned so much from that in terms of, we just learned our business is incredible now. What went down with our gym drove all of the amazing, great, excellent decisions that we have made with our online business. And as a result, we hired the right mentors, we hired the right team. We've done everything, quote unquote, right with the business that we have now as a result of that horrible experience that we had with our gym. And that's just, so I don't regret it at all. If I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be the entrepreneur and strong human being I am today. And and I also wouldn't be out in Las Vegas either. I would still be in Boston shoveling snow. So that's the other good thing. I always joke, we literally manifested because in the winter of 2015 in Boston, we got 7 feet of snow in a 3-week period. And I was that winter that my husband and I were as soon as we're done with the gym, we are moving somewhere where there's no snow, there's better weather, and there's a lower cost of living. And I truly believe that even though how we manifested our move to Vegas was not we had to go through hell to manifest it, that's how we manifested it, because that's what brought us out here. Because everything just lined up for my husband with that job at Cirque, everything. It was pretty crazy how it all just fell into place. So yeah, I know I've been talking for a half an hour.
All right, guys, that's the podcast. We'll see you later. Artemis just interviewed herself. So
I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to let you take it. I'm going to drink of water.
30 minutes on the dot, folks. Mm-hmm. She challenged the record for Corey. That's the longest Austin's ever been quiet before, ever. What's interesting? You could be a drug addict and you could be an alcoholic, and people are more comfortable talking about that than they are bankruptcy. Mm-hmm.
Totally.
In America, I have coaching clients that had a bankruptcy at 22 and he's 46 and it's still fucking with him. Mm. And he's a millionaire. And he's a millionaire. And the reason he was in bankruptcy is why he became a millionaire, because he learned his lesson.
Yep.
But he didn't want to he didn't see that. So when you said, I had to start talking about it, I had to start dealing with it. It's the number one thing I tell everybody. When it's in the closet and the lights are off, it controls the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
If you can own it, then you can get over it. Right.
If you're not talking about it, you're still living that truth. You're living your past as your truth. So until you start talking about it and disassociating yourself from it, you can't create your new truth and literally start living your new truth in your new life. You have to.
One of the things I do with my coaching clients is I said, the reason that you cannot change bad behaviors or bad patterns is because, just like you said, you're too associated with them. So I make them create a fake character they hate and a fake character they love. And anytime they do those patterns, I make them call them that self. And it's a trigger to say, oh, I'm doing it again. And then what happens is, over time, you just remove those bad patterns from you and you step into the true you. It works like clockwork because it's too wrapped up into your identity. You can't pull it apart. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is I read your post just the other day, and you said even in 2019 with your coaching business that you nobody explained it better. You were charred and burnt out. Mm-hmm. And so many times in life, you've done the thing that you thought you were supposed to do, but yet you got to the end and you were still burnt out. And so what have you learned since then that has created the business that you currently have that's so successful the way that you wanted it to?
Well, one of my patterns is that, we actually were talking about my pattern at this business retreat I was at last week, because I'm trying to figure out, and I don't have a name for her yet, but last week I was talking about, I need to like come up with a name for her. But one of my patterns is that I get stuck in the doing. I'm like doing, right? I keep thinking like, I just need to, if something's not working out the way I want it to work, I think that I need to do more. And, or if I'm in the process of going through the process, whatever that process is, I think I need to force the process in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so what I have worked on, which I'm in a much better place now, because now that pattern, like she can sit next to me, I can pour her a drink, we can hang out, like I'm cool. Like I don't get, like when I first identified that pattern, I literally, it was like waterworks, like, I was like bawling for hours about it. But it was, I lost my train of thought, but like, so now I've let go of like doing so much. And I recognize, I catch myself if I start to get into that. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm like doing it again. I've done enough, and I can just sit here and recognize that I'm in the process of being in the process, whether it's, and it's the same thing. The analogy that I was giving when I was talking about this last week was also like, I even do it like when I fight with my husband, like we're having a fight, and then I'll just like keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him and like forcing, when it's like, no, we're in the process of having the fight. So just like, let it be. And then if you just let it be, then the discussions will come organically. It'll just happen. It'll work itself out. You guys will be able to talk. But if I'm like pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and forcing him to talk when he's not ready, then like it doesn't work, right? It's just like banging my head against the wall. So that was like one of the biggest things. And before that, it was like when I was, my charred, burnt out ass at the end of 2019, it was like, I need to hire a coach. Because one of the mistakes that we made with our gym is we didn't hire a mentor early enough. We didn't hire a mentor until like we were halfway through and we were like in the thick of it. And that was like when we changed our business model and everything, when we got to the new facility. And so my lesson learned was like, I just need to always make sure I have a mentor guiding me and being my objective perspective. And the reason why I chose the mentor I did at the end of 2019 was that I know that she was going to help me with the business strategy, but that she was also going to help me with the shadow work and the limiting beliefs and the patterns and all of that, because that's what was driving the repeated burnout over and over again. So I got that, the right tactical strategy to set my business up the way I needed to in terms of offers and how to do marketing and all that stuff and launches. But then I also got this, I also had a coach who was able to say, Artemis, like you're doing again, let's work through this, right? So you can start to disassociate yourself from that pattern. You're not doing it as often. And then eventually like never, right?
Yeah, my mentor posted a video the other day. He said, if you're a true leader of business or a true leader of people, you need to become the door, not the doer. So you open the door for the others around you, the ones that work for you, and you show them the way, and then you get the fuck out of the way instead of the doer, and I think doing gets you where you need to go. It gets you started. But once you get to that point, you need to stand back and look up enough. And that's why I've spent this whole year on making sure that, the social media, the marketing is exactly who I'm trying to target. And the first year was just about getting over the fear of doing it in the first place. And now it's like, okay, now where are we really going? So on and so on. And, you spoke about having to overcome what most people have a problem with, which is money. And, that seems to me, mean, it is one of the biggest things that nobody talks about, / nobody is comfortable talking about, / just kind of hides around. And, nobody's allowed to say they want money anymore, right? We have to be humble, and we have to, but you can make more money the right way, and you can give more of it back. And I think, there's such this, I don't know, it's just such this toxic environment with money these days.
Yeah, it's very, it's like money falls in the category of like, no one's really talking about like sex, drugs, poop, or money, right? But it's how and it's still a process. Like, I'm still working on stuff related to it. But part of that process was talking about it freely in my business with my clients, being completely transparent, and then just even talking about it freely on social media, talking about what I want. What are my money goals? What are my abundance goals? And just talking about it without being afraid of people judging me. And then knowing full well that if people judge me, then that means that's their issue, and that they have a lot of work to do when it comes to money mindset. And so I have no problems talking about money, but if I end up triggering someone as a result, well, they need some help with that, right? And it goes back to, our relationship with money goes as far back as when we were like 7 or 8. And that's when we formed our beliefs around money based upon how our parents talked about it, the experiences we had at that time. And then we start to shape our lives around those beliefs as we get older, and we create this whole life around it. In terms of, we learned like you have to work hard to make money, then we think that you always have to work hard to make money. Like, let's get real here, right? Like, and I think Jen Sincero talked about this in her book, You're a Badass at Making Money. She said, do you ever see rich people working hard? No. No.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
All right. They figure out, like, they're rich because they learn how to make their money work for them, right? They get paid, like, say like their income is their quote unquote seed money, but they learn how to plant those seeds. So it works for them, and it grows into a big ass garden, and they can just not work a lot. Right. And, or like, so that's like one of them, or that or that rich people are greedy, selfish assholes, which is bullshit. I mean, look at Tyler Perry. He's a freaking billionaire, and he is like the most giving, loving, philanthropic person out there. He's one of the most, right? And and all those types of beliefs that maybe you learned from your parents or your relatives, your family members, and just any experiences. And then you start to carry those into your life throughout your entire life, unless you work on them. And then you create your entire life around it. So if you have judgments about money, in that, like, you think you have to work hard to make money, or that there's never going to be enough money, or that money runs out, or that wanting money makes you materialistic, or that rich people are greedy assholes, like, then that's what you are going to manifest in your life. You're going to manifest money running out. You are always going to attract or just see rich people as greedy, or because you have that judgment of rich people. You will never, you assume that if you become rich, then you will become materialistic and greedy. So therefore, since you hold on to that belief, you will never allow yourself to become rich.
So Kyle Cease said on Lewis Howes, the number one way to get rich is solely based on your ability to be okay with being poor. Meaning we don't need it. So it doesn't own me.
Yeah.
It doesn't control me. And I'm just going to live in my truths and live who I am, and let it just attract to me and stuff like that. Well, guys, that was Artemis interviewing herself on the podcast. She's very talented, super great at it. Always love our conversations. Thank you for sharing your story. And I love how, I'm going to be honest with you, I've met a lot of people in my life. I want to say you're the only one that's shared a story like that, or at least the whole story of that. And it's super powerful.
Thank you.
For anybody that's out there, the reason I started the podcast, the reason I do my events is I tell this tagline, and I mean it. Everybody has a story. Mm-hmm. You have to share it. And when you share your story, you realize that you're not the only one with that story. And because if you're not the only one with that story, then together we can heal. Together we can fix. Together we can change the world. And so that's why these podcasts are important. Live events are important. So people get up and share. And if you affected one person with what went down today, then we did our job. And so if people want to follow your journey, they want to find out more about what you and your husband have going on, how would they do that?
The best way is to find me on Instagram, which is my full name, which is really long, Artemis _Scantalides, but I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. So that, and then also, I guess you could, go to our website, which is the name of our business is Empower You Online Coaching, which we created this name of Empower You, empower with a capital U, because it's all about empowering yourself to create your own destiny and create your dream business. And as a result of creating your dream business, creating your dream life, because money is freedom. The more money you have, the more free you are. Just going back to rich people don't work hard. So if you say you don't want money, just think about the things that you do want. And I guarantee you they will be connected to having money. Those things will help you money will help you to have those things. And money, it doesn't turn you into something you're not. It just amplifies who you are. So if you are a good person, then you will continue to be a good person and you'll be able to do great things with that money. You'll want to do great things with that money.
Amen. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, share it with somebody that you think will get some value from this, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.